Michelle, 34, founder of Elysium apparel, standing at her mother's funeral in a simple black dress. Sister Amanda's mocking comment about her ordinary appearance cuts through grief. Family members nodding in agreement, unaware of Michelle's success. Years of judgment culminating in this moment. Michelle considering whether to finally reveal her secret identity as the creator of the luxury brand her sister worships. A moment that would change everything in their complicated family dynamic. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from today? Hit like and subscribe to join me for more true family drama stories that show revenge served elegantly. Growing up in Boston with Amanda, my sister who is 4 years younger than me, shaped much of who I am today. From the beginning, our personalities couldn't have been more different. Where I was practical, thoughtful, and drawn to creating things with my hands, Amanda was all about appearances and status from an astonishingly young age. Our mother Laura had a clear favorite, and it wasn't me. She doted on Amanda, praised her beauty, and seemed to light up whenever my sister entered a room. Amanda had our mother's dark curls and striking features, while I took after our father Richard with sandy blonde hair and a more understated appearance. Mom would spend hours shopping with Amanda for the perfect outfit for even minor occasions, while my clothing needs were addressed with quick, functional purchases. Michelle is so low maintenance, Mom would tell her friends while I stood nearby, understanding even as a 10-year-old that this wasn't entirely a compliment. Amanda just has such an eye for quality. Dad worked long hours at his accounting firm, often leaving before sunrise and returning well after dinner. When he was home, he and I connected over practical matters. He appreciated my sensible nature and encouraged my academic achievements, but emotional conversations weren't his strength. He would ruffle my hair and say, "That's my practical girl," whenever I found a way to fix something around the house or managed our family budget for a project. By the time Amanda was in middle school, her obsession with designer labels was fully formed. She could recognize brands from 20 feet away and would save her allowance for months to buy a single designer item while I used mine for books and art supplies. Our mother encouraged this, saying Amanda understood quality and had good taste. My interest in fashion emerged differently. I didn't care about wearing expensive clothes, I wanted to understand how they were made. In high school, I began designing and sewing my own pieces, transforming thrift store finds into something unique. My bedroom became a mini studio, with sketches covering the walls and fabric scraps littering the floor. The first major conflict between Amanda and me happened during my senior prom. I had spent 3 months creating my dress, a midnight blue gown with intricate beading I'd done by hand. The night before prom, I came home to find Amanda trying it on. In her haste to remove it when she heard me coming, she tore the delicate beadwork along the bodice. "It's not a big deal," she said, rolling her eyes at my shock. "No one will notice anyway. It's not like it's a real designer dress." Mom sided with Amanda, telling me I was overreacting. I stayed up all night repairing the damage, tears streaming down my face as I meticulously reattached each tiny bead. When I received a scholarship to study fashion design at Parsons in New York, my accomplishment was met with lukewarm enthusiasm from my family. Mom questioned whether it was a practical career choice, suddenly concerned about practicality when it came to my future. "Fashion is so competitive, Michelle. Is this really the best use of your talents?" she asked during my high school graduation dinner. Meanwhile, Amanda dropped out of her first semester of community college, declaring it boring and beneath her. This decision received far less criticism than my scholarship. As we entered adulthood, Amanda's materialism only intensified. She bounced between jobs that could fund her shopping habits but consistently spent beyond her means. Credit card debt mounted as she struggled to maintain the lifestyle she thought she deserved. Yet, she continued to receive financial bailouts from our parents when things got tight. I remember one Christmas when I was 23 and had just completed my degree. I came home wearing a vintage coat I'd found and refurbished. Amanda took one look at me and laughed. "God, Michelle, do you ever care how you present yourself? That coat looks like it came from a dumpster," she said loudly at the family gathering. "You could at least try during the holidays." Several relatives chuckled, and Mom simply sighed, as if my appearance was a burden she had learned to bear. Dad glanced up from his newspaper briefly but said nothing. That night, alone in my childhood bedroom, I made a decision that would alter the course of my life. If my family couldn't see the value in my vision or talent, I would prove it to them, but not by telling them. I would show the world first, and I would do it under a pseudonym. I returned to New York with a determination that bordered on obsession. I would create a brand so exclusive, so desirable, that even Amanda would covet it. And no one in my family would know it was mine until I decided to tell them. Looking back, I can see how those early years shaped both Amanda and me. She was taught that her value lay in what she wore and how she looked, while I learned that my creative vision would never be enough for my family's approval. The seeds of our adult conflict were planted in the soil of childhood preferences and cultivated by years of unbalanced treatment. I moved to New York with exactly $1,200 in savings, a suitcase of clothes, and my portfolio. The city was everything Boston wasn't: fast, unapologetic, and brimming with creative energy. I found a tiny apartment in Brooklyn that I shared with 3 other girls, all of us squeezed into a space barely big enough for 2. My portion of the bedroom was separated by a curtain hung from the ceiling, giving me just enough privacy to sketch late into the night. During those first months, I worked 3 jobs: morning shifts at a coffee shop near Times Square, evening receptionist at a fitness studio, and weekend sales associate at a fabric store in the garment district. Between shifts, I would sketch designs on napkins, bus tickets, anything I could find. Sleep became a luxury I could rarely afford. It was at Textile Treasures, the fabric store, where I met Jasmine Lee, a sharp-minded business student who worked there to learn about the fashion industry from the ground up. While sorting buttons one rainy Tuesday afternoon, I showed her some of my sketches. "These are incredible," she said, examining my concept for a structured jacket with unusual seaming. "Have you shown these to anyone who matters?" "No one who matters has been interested," I replied honestly. Jasmine became my first true believer. 6 months later, we used our combined savings of $3,000 to create a mini collection of 5 pieces. We rented a tiny booth at a local designer showcase, printing business cards on Jasmine's roommate's printer the night before. Not a single piece sold. We packed up in silence at the end of the weekend, our optimism deflated. "This doesn't mean your designs aren't good," Jasmine insisted as we carried our unsold clothes home on the subway. "It means our approach was wrong." Following that disappointment, I managed to land an assistant position with Marcus Reed, a notoriously demanding designer known for reducing interns to tears. Working under Marcus was brutal 18-hour days, constant criticism, and minimal credit, but I absorbed everything. I learned about fabric sourcing, production timelines, and the business realities of fashion that my education had only touched upon. My breakthrough came during my 2nd year working for Marcus. On my own time, I designed a coat with an innovative cut that created a striking silhouette. I saved for months to produce a single prototype, spending every dollar I had on the highest quality materials. I wore it on a coffee run and literally bumped into Caroline West, the fashion editor at Pulse magazine. She stopped me on the street. "That coat is extraordinary," she said, circling me with a critical eye. "Who designed it?" For a split second, I considered lying, saying it was a small European designer. Instead, I took a deep breath. I did. Caroline gave me her card and asked to see more of my work. That meeting led to a small feature in Pulse's Designers to Watch section. A week after publication, I received an email from Lena Winters, a venture capitalist with a background in luxury goods. She offered a $100,000 investment to launch my brand properly. Jasmine and I spent 3 days crafting a business plan, fueled by takeout and very little sleep. We decided on the name Elysium, heavenly, aspirational, with a touch of mythology. And I made a crucial decision. I would use only my initials, M.E., as the designer. No photos, no personal story. The mystery would be part of the brand. "Are you sure?" Jasmine questioned. "Your story could be a great marketing angle." "I'm sure," I said firmly. "I want the clothes to speak for themselves. And I'm not ready for my family to know." We launched Elysium with a tightly edited collection of 10 pieces, 3 coats, 2 dresses, 2 pairs of tailored pants, and 3 blouses. Our strategy was deliberate limitation. We produced only 50 of each item, numbered them, and marketed them as collector pieces as much as clothing. The exclusivity created demand. When actress Zara Cohen wore our signature Helix coat to a film premiere, the waiting list exploded overnight. Suddenly, fashion insiders were speculating about MEE's identity, creating the kind of buzz money couldn't buy. As Elysium grew, so did the speculation. I gave interviews via email only, declining all photo opportunities and in-person meetings with press. The mystery fueled interest, and within 2 years, we expanded into accessories, bags, scarves, and eventually shoes. During these years of building Elysium, my personal life took a back seat. I lived in the same modest apartment long after I could afford better, pouring every profit back into the company. Dates were rare, friendships outside of work rarer still. Jasmine often reminded me that success should bring some joy, not just more work. The company is successful, she would say. That doesn't mean you have to be miserable. But there was something I couldn't explain to her, the quiet determination to create something so undeniably excellent that even my family couldn't dismiss it. Particularly Amanda. Through occasional calls home and holiday visits, I learned that Amanda had developed an obsession with Elysium products. She would save for months to purchase a single item, maxing out credit cards and picking up extra shifts. The irony was almost too perfect. "You should see this bag," she gushed during one phone call, unaware she was speaking to the designer herself. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever owned. The craftsmanship is incredible. Not that you would understand, it's very exclusive." I made a deliberate choice to keep my modest lifestyle, even as Elysium expanded into a multi-million-dollar company. My apartment got slightly bigger, but I still took the subway, bought groceries on sale, and wore simple clothes, often unmarked samples from my own line. I reinvested my earnings in the best materials, ethical manufacturing, and fair wages for our growing team. 6 years after our launch, Elysium was featured in Vogue with an 8-page spread. The mysterious ME was described as fashion's most intriguing cipher. The article speculated I might be a European aristocrat or a reclusive celebrity. No one guessed I was a girl from Boston, whose own sister thought she had no style. The success brought freedom, but also a strange kind of loneliness. I had created a brand celebrated for its authenticity, while hiding my true identity from everyone except Jasmine and our core team. The irony wasn't lost on me. 18 months ago, Mom called with news that stopped my carefully constructed world in its tracks: Stage 3 ovarian cancer. Despite our complicated relationship, my heart dropped to the floor of my Manhattan office. I booked a flight to Boston that same afternoon, telling Jasmine to clear my schedule indefinitely. "Family emergency," was all I said, and she understood immediately. When I arrived at Massachusetts General Hospital, I found Mom looking smaller than I remembered, her usually perfect hair flat against the pillow. Amanda was nowhere to be seen. "She's coming tomorrow," Dad explained, his face drawn with worry. "She has an important work presentation she couldn't reschedule." I nodded, swallowing the comment that rose to my lips. Instead, I focused on what I could do. I spoke with doctors, researched treatment options, and set up a consultation with an oncology specialist in New York who owed me a favor after I dressed his daughter for her wedding. The diagnosis was grim, but there was an experimental treatment available, one not covered by insurance, and with a price tag of $200,000. Without hesitation, I arranged to pay for it anonymously, routing the money through a foundation to keep my financial situation private. "It's a medical charity," I told my bewildered father. I applied on Mom's behalf. Amanda arrived the next evening, full of dramatic tears and self-focused grief. "I can't believe this is happening to our family," she kept saying, as if Mom's cancer was a personal affront to her. Over the following months, a pattern emerged. I would fly to Boston every weekend and many weekdays, working remotely from the hospital when possible. Amanda would visit sporadically, always with a new Elysium accessory she'd treated herself to for stress relief. Life doesn't stop because Mom is sick, she justified when I questioned her spending. Besides, quality items are an investment. Despite my consistent presence, Mom maintained an emotional distance. She would thank me for handling her appointments and medications, but light up when Amanda arrived with gossip and shopping stories. I told myself it didn't matter, I wasn't doing this for recognition. During one of my weekends organizing their house, I discovered a box in the attic containing every design I had sketched as a child. Birthday cards with fashion drawings, school notebooks filled with outfit ideas, even the preliminary sketches for my prom dress. Mom had kept them all, carefully preserved in acid-free paper. When I asked her about it during her next lucid period between treatments, she looked away. "I always knew you were talented," she said quietly. "I just worried it wouldn't be enough in such a competitive field." It was the closest thing to acknowledgement I'd ever received from her, and it left me with complicated feelings I had no time to process. I was too busy becoming her primary caregiver as the experimental treatment ravaged her body while buying precious time. Dad retreated into his work more than ever, his way of coping with the prospect of losing his wife of 35 years. He would bring home takeout for us, ask mechanical questions about Mom's treatment, and then disappear into his home office until midnight. As winter arrived, bringing holidays that felt like a cruel parody of our usual celebrations, Amanda's behavior became increasingly self-centered. She showed up for Christmas dinner 3 hours late, wearing a new Elysium dress and complaining about the traffic. "At least make an effort with your appearance," she hissed at me in the kitchen. "Mom doesn't need to see you looking depressed all the time." I was wearing clean jeans and a simple sweater after being up all night administering Mom's medication. My appearance was the last thing on my mind. 3 months before Mom died, we had a small family gathering for her birthday. She was having a good day, the first in weeks, where she felt strong enough to sit at the dining table. I had prepared all her favorite foods and decorated the room with photos from happier times. Amanda arrived mid-meal with her latest acquisition, an Elysium handbag from our most recent collection. Only 75 were made worldwide. "Look what I got, Mom," she said, placing it in our mother's lap. "It's the Elysium Cosmos bag. There's a 6-month waiting list, but I know people now." Mom stroked the leather reverently. "It's beautiful, darling. So sophisticated." I recognized the hand-stitching instantly. I had designed this particular detail myself, inspired by constellations my father had shown me through his telescope when I was 9. The bag contained a piece of my childhood that neither of them would ever know. 2 weeks later, Mom fell into a coma following a complication from her treatment. During her final coherent conversation, she had reached for my hand with surprising strength. "You always were the strong one," she whispered. I should have. But whatever she should have done remained unsaid as she drifted into unconsciousness. For the next 6 weeks, I barely left her side. I set up a workstation in her hospital room, running Elysium remotely during the hours she slept. Jasmine flew in twice to bring critical samples and documents, careful to maintain our cover story that I worked in fashion marketing. Amanda visited sporadically, always with a dramatic entrance and exit, always too busy to stay long. She missed our mother's final moments on a Tuesday afternoon while getting a blowout for an office party. I was alone with Mom when she took her last breath, my hand holding hers. The grief hit me like a physical blow. Not just for what we had lost, but for what we had never fully had. The practical tasks fell to me: funeral arrangements, obituary, closing accounts, and sorting personal effects. Dad moved through these days like a ghost, nodding at whatever I suggested. Amanda reappeared after Mom passed, full of opinions about arrangements she contributed nothing to organizing. Mom would have wanted a more elegant floral arrangement, she insisted, looking at the classic white lilies I had ordered. And this memorial card is so basic. When I showed her the bill for the funeral expenses, suggesting she cover a portion, she became defensive. "I'm not in a position to help financially right now," she said, lifting her chin. "I just spent 3 months' salary on this bag, and it was an investment piece." It was the same Elysium bag I had designed while sitting beside our mother's hospital bed. The week before, the funeral unfolded in a blur of phone calls, arrangements, and family politics. As the executor of Mom's modest estate, I handled everything from selecting her burial outfit to coordinating with the cemetery. Dad tried to help but kept forgetting details and retreating to his study, overcome with grief he didn't know how to express. Amanda, meanwhile, contributed nothing but criticism. The reception should be catered, not potluck, she insisted, scrolling through her phone while I made lists at the kitchen table. And we should hold it at the country club, not here at the house. The country club costs $5,000 to rent for an afternoon, I explained, not for the first time. Dad can't afford that right now. Then I'm sure you can figure something out with your mysterious job, she replied with a dismissive wave. All that travel you do, you must make decent money. If she only knew. I could have bought the country club outright if I wanted to, but that wasn't the point. Mom had always loved entertaining at home. Her final gathering should reflect who she was, not Amanda's social aspirations. Extended family began arriving 3 days before the funeral, bringing with them their own opinions and judgments. Aunt Kathy, Mom's older sister, immediately sided with Amanda on everything from the flowers to the memorial cards. Your mother always had such elegant taste, she said pointedly, examining the simple program I had designed. This seems rather basic. Uncle Robert, Dad's brother, pulled me aside in the kitchen on the second day. So what is it you actually do, Michelle? Still playing around with fashion? I work in the industry, I replied vaguely, arranging sandwich platters. In New York. Must not be going too well, he commented, eyeing my simple black pants and cream sweater. You could at least dress the part of a fashion person for your mother's funeral. I bit my tongue. Little did he know I was wearing a sweater from Elysium's unreleased fall collection, crafted from cashmere so fine it was almost weightless. The simple design belied its 5-figure retail value. Only Aunt Margaret, Dad's sister, seemed to see through the family dynamics. She caught me alone in the garden, where I had escaped for a moment of peace. Your mother was very proud of you, she said quietly. She kept a file of every article mentioning that brand you work with. She never told anyone, but she knew you were doing well. My heart stopped. What brand? Margaret smiled gently. I don't remember the name. Something mythological? She was cryptic about it, but mothers know their children's work. She showed me once when Amanda wasn't around. I changed the subject quickly, but the conversation left me shaken. Had Mom figured it out? Had she known all along who Emmy really was? While cleaning Mom's desk to prepare for the reception, I found an old family album I'd never seen before. Tucked inside was her journal from the past 5 years. I hesitated only briefly before opening it. Among entries about garden club and neighborhood gossip, I found a single paragraph that made my hands tremble. Saw M.E. featured in Vogue today. The coat on page 43 has the same unusual collar detail Michelle used to draw in high school. The botanical pattern in the lining is identical to the flowers she pressed in her science journal in 10th grade. Is it possible? I'm almost afraid to ask. She had suspected but never confronted me. I closed the journal, unsure whether to feel relief or deeper sadness at this missed connection. The night before the funeral, alone in my childhood bedroom, I had my first real anxiety attack in years. The walls seemed to close in, filled with memories both painful and precious. I called Jasmine at midnight, something I rarely allowed myself to do. I don't know if I can get through tomorrow without telling them, I confessed, voice barely above a whisper. Maybe it's time, she said gently. This secret has served its purpose, Michelle. You've proven yourself beyond anyone's doubt. The question is whether keeping it is still serving you. Amanda would turn it into a spectacle, I argued. She'd make Mom's funeral about me in Elysium. Only if you let her, Jasmine countered. You've built an empire by staying true to your vision despite everyone else's opinions. Why stop now? I fell into fitful sleep, dreams filled with fabric and funeral flowers intertwining. Morning came too quickly, gray light filtering through curtains I had picked out as a teenager. I dressed methodically in the simple black dress I had designed specifically for this day, structurally perfect, elegantly understated, with Mom's favorite flower subtly embroidered along the inside hem where only I would know it existed. As I applied minimal makeup, I heard the front door slam and Amanda's voice echoing through the house. She had arrived dramatically late as usual the night before the funeral. The airline lost my luggage, Can you believe it? I had to stop and buy something appropriate to wear. I descended the stairs to find her showing off a complete Elysium outfit to our cousin Beth. The dress, shoes, and handbag from our most recent collection. It cost a fortune, but what choice did I have? I couldn't attend Mom's funeral looking anything less than perfect. Our eyes met across the living room, and for a moment, I considered saying it right then. The words formed in my mouth. "That's my design you're wearing." But Dad appeared at the bottom of the stairs, lost and small in his old suit, and the moment passed. "Everything's ready," I said instead. "The cars will be here in an hour." The church service was solemn and beautiful in its simplicity. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, casting pools of color across the wooden pews filled with family, friends, and neighbors. I had chosen classic hymns Mom had loved and white roses for the altar arrangement. Dad sat beside me in the front pew, occasionally gripping my hand when emotion overwhelmed him. Amanda arrived 10 minutes after the service began, creating a minor commotion as she made her way to the front row. Her heels clicked loudly on the stone floor, the sound echoing in the quiet sanctuary. Several heads turned to watch her dramatic entrance in her designer outfit, complete with oversized sunglasses she kept on throughout the initial prayers. When it came time for the eulogy, I approached the podium with steady steps, the speech I had carefully written tucked in my hand. I spoke of Mom's love of gardening, her volunteer work at the library, her famous apple pie at Thanksgiving. I shared memories of bedtime stories and Sunday drives, carefully selecting moments that reflected her best self. From the front row, Amanda whispered loudly to our cousin, "She always makes everything so boring. Mom was so much more glamorous than this." I continued without acknowledging the interruption, though my cheeks burned with a mixture of grief and anger. This was neither the time nor place. After the service, we proceeded to the cemetery under a sky-threatening rain. The funeral director had provided umbrellas, which proved necessary as light drops began falling during the final prayers. Amanda stood apart from the main group, seemingly concerned about her expensive outfit getting wet despite using the largest umbrella. Her grief appeared performative, dramatic sobs that started and stopped with suspicious timing, especially when distant relatives or Mom's influential friends were watching. By contrast, Dad's quiet tears and my own restrained sorrow seemed almost invisible. As we returned to the house for the reception, the real tension began building. I had arranged a lovely spread of Mom's favorite foods, prepared by her friends from church and neighbors who had known her for decades. Photographs of Mom throughout her life decorated the living room, and soft classical music, her preferred Sunday soundtrack, played in the background. Amanda immediately claimed the central position in the living room, holding court with relatives and accepting condolences as though she had been Mom's primary caregiver. I busied myself in the kitchen, making sure everyone had food and drinks, fielding questions about practical matters from distant relatives. I overheard Cousin Beth admiring Amanda's handbag as I arranged more sandwiches on a tray. "Is that really an Elysium? They're impossible to get," Beth exclaimed, touching the buttery leather with reverent fingers. Amanda preened, positioning the bag more prominently on her lap. "Yes. It's from their limited heritage collection. Only 60 were made worldwide. I had to call in serious favors to get one. The craftsmanship is incredible," Beth marveled. "How long was the waiting list?" 8 months, Amanda lied smoothly. The actual wait list had been 4 months, and we had produced 75 bags, not 60. They say ME inspects every piece personally before it ships. The attention to detail is why they're so exclusive. I smiled to myself, remembering the weekend I had spent finalizing that particular design, adjusting the strap length by a 1/4 inch, until it was perfect. As the afternoon progressed, I noticed Amanda gathering a small audience of relatives, her voice growing louder with each glass of wine. I was serving coffee to some of Mom's older friends when I heard my name. "Michelle could learn a thing or two about presentation," Amanda was saying, "especially working in fashion marketing or whatever it is she claims to do." I turned slowly, coffee pot still in hand. "I mean, look at her," Amanda continued, gesturing in my direction. "So typical of you to look so ordinary, even at Mom's funeral." Several relatives nodded in agreement, some laughing softly. Dad was in the kitchen, thankfully out of earshot for this particular barb. Some people just don't understand quality, Amanda added, smoothing her hand over her Elysium dress. This designer creates wearable art. Not that Michelle would recognize the difference between couture and department store clearance. I set down the coffee pot with deliberate care, a strange calm settling over me. For years, I had maintained my secret, separating my family from my success. But standing in our childhood home, with Mom gone and Amanda weaponizing my own creation against me, something shifted. "The dress is beautiful," I said, approaching their circle. "From the Heritage Collection, right?" Amanda looked surprised, but pleased by my interest. "Yes, it just released last month. I spent 3 months' salary on this outfit." She stood and turned slowly, modeling the dress. "The construction is flawless. See how the seams create this silhouette? The designer is a genius with structure." "May I see your purse?" I asked, extending my hand. Amanda hesitated, then passed me the bag with obvious reluctance, as though letting a child hold a priceless vase. "Be careful with it." I examined the bag carefully, turning it over in my hands. Near the bottom corner was a tiny, nearly invisible mark, my personal signature hidden in every Elysium piece. A small constellation that matched a birthmark on my shoulder. "It's lovely workmanship," I agreed, running my finger over the signature mark. "Do you know much about the designer, M.E.?" Amanda launched into her well-rehearsed spiel about fashion's most mysterious figure. Nobody knows who M.E. really is. Some say it's a former royal, others think it's a collective of artisans. The mystery is part of the brand's allure. The waiting lists are insane because everything is produced in such limited quantities. "And you respect this designer?" I asked, still holding the bag. "Of course. Anyone with taste does. Their vision is unparalleled in contemporary fashion." She reached to reclaim her purse, but I held it a moment longer. "What would you say if you could meet M.E. in person?" I asked quietly. The room had grown still, other conversations fading as relatives sensed something unfolding. Amanda laughed. "I'd probably faint, then beg for early access to the next collection." "Why? It's not like you know them." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of a decade's secret on my shoulders. "Actually," I said clearly, "I am M.E. I'm the founder and designer of Elysium." Silence fell over the living room so completely that I could hear the wall clock ticking in the hallway. Amanda stared at me, her expression cycling rapidly through confusion, disbelief, and the beginning edges of horror. "What are you talking about?" she finally managed, her voice higher than usual. "That's not possible." "It's true," I said calmly, still holding her purse. M.E. stands for Michelle Ellis. I founded Elysium 10 years ago with my business partner Jasmine Lee. I designed the dress you're wearing and this bag. Nervous laughter rippled through our relatives. Aunt Kathy spoke up. "Michelle, grief makes people say strange things, dear." I pulled out my phone and opened a private album, turning the screen toward them. There I was in the Elysium atelier, working on the very dress Amanda was wearing. Another photo showed me with Jasmine at our most recent Fashion Week presentation, careful to stay behind the scenes but captured by a backstage photographer. "I can also show you the signature mark only the designer would know," I said, turning the bag over and pointing to the tiny constellation near the bottom seam. "It's based on my birthmark. Every authentic Elysium piece has it, usually hidden somewhere only the maker would think to look." The room remained frozen in shock until Aunt Margaret's delighted laughter broke the spell. "I knew it. Laura suspected too, you know. A mother recognizes her daughter's work." Amanda's face had gone from flushed to pale. "This is ridiculous. You're making this up for attention. At Mom's funeral. Of all places." "Why would I lie about this?" I asked quietly. "I've kept it secret for 10 years precisely to avoid this kind of scene." Dad appeared in the doorway, confusion written across his tired face. "What's happening?" Uncle Robert stepped forward, suddenly very interested. "Apparently your daughter Michelle is some big-shot secret fashion designer, the one who makes Amanda's expensive bags." Dad looked at me with wide eyes. "Is this true?" I nodded. feeling strangely vulnerable under his gaze. Yes, I'm M.E., the designer behind Elysium. A slow smile spread across his face, the first real smile I'd seen since Mom's diagnosis. That's why you could afford the experimental treatment. It wasn't a medical charity at all. No, I admitted. That was me. Amanda suddenly found her voice again, louder and more strident. I always knew there was something suspicious about your job. I was testing you, seeing how long you'd keep up this ridiculous charade. No one in the room appeared convinced by this abrupt reversal. That's why you never dress the part, she continued desperately. It's some weird psychological game you're playing. It's not a game, I explained, addressing the room rather than just my sister. I wanted my work to stand on its own merits, not family connections or personal story. The clothes should speak for themselves. So all these years, when Amanda has been showing off her Elysium pieces, Aunt Kathy trailed off, the implications dawning on her. She's been unknowingly buying and praising my designs, I confirmed, while simultaneously criticizing my appearance and career. Dad approached me slowly, examining me as though seeing me for the first time. The mysterious M.E. that's been in all those magazines. That's my practical girl? The pride in his voice made my throat tighten. Yes, Dad. He pulled me into an unexpected hug, whispering, "Your mother would be so proud. So am I." Amanda made a sound between a scoff and a sob, then turned and stormed out of the room. The front door slammed moments later, shaking the family photos on the wall. For the next hour, the reception transformed into something I hadn't anticipated. Relatives who had barely spoken to me earlier now approached with questions about Elysium, fashion weeks, and celebrity clients. Uncle Robert suddenly remembered he had always believed in my potential, despite his earlier dismissiveness. Aunt Margaret took my hand and led me to a quiet corner. "Don't let this overshadow today," she advised gently. "Your mother is still the reason we're gathered." She was right. I redirected conversations back to Mom whenever possible, sharing memories and ensuring her presence remained central. Yet I couldn't help feeling a weight had lifted, a secret kept for too long, finally released. After most guests had departed, Dad and I sat on the porch swing, the same one where he used to read me stories as a child. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked softly. "All these years." I considered my answer carefully. At first, I wanted to prove I could do it without family support or connections. Then, when Elysium became successful, it just seemed easier to keep the world separate. "Because of Amanda," he stated rather than asked. "Partly," I admitted, "and partly because of Mom. I was never quite what she wanted me to be." Dad sighed heavily. "Your mother was complicated, Michelle. She pushed hardest against the things she feared most. She feared your creativity because she gave up her own artistic dreams when she got married." This was news to me. Mom was artistic? She was studying fine arts when we met. Wanted to be a painter. But her parents convinced her it wasn't practical. Just like she later told you. He stared out at the darkening yard. We repeat patterns without meaning to. We sat in companionable silence until my phone rang. Amanda's name flashed on the screen. I answered with trepidation. Her voice was cold and brittle. "You humiliated me today." "That wasn't my intention," I replied honestly. 10 years, Michelle. 10 years of lying to your family while laughing behind our backs. "I never laughed at you," I said quietly. "I just wanted to succeed on my own terms." "You could have told me," she insisted. "I'm your sister." "Would you have kept it a secret? Not use the connection to get special treatment or discounts?" Her silence was answer enough. "I never intended to reveal it like this," I continued, "but I couldn't listen to you mock me using my own creation as the weapon." "So what happens now?" she demanded. "You go back to your fancy designer life and leave us behind?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm still your sister. Dad still needs us both. Nothing changes except you finally know what I actually do for a living." She hung up without another word, leaving me staring at the silent phone. The confrontation was over, but the real work of rebuilding was just beginning. 2 weeks after the funeral, I returned to the Elysium headquarters in Manhattan. The familiar hum of sewing machines and quiet concentration of my design team provided comfort after the emotional upheaval of recent events. My office, with its wall of windows overlooking the city and tables covered in fabric swatches, felt more like home than my apartment ever had. Jasmine had managed everything flawlessly during my absence, but questions lingered in the eyes of my team. Rumors about my identity had begun circulating in industry circles following my revelation to my family. "Are we going public with who you are?" Jasmine asked during our morning briefing. "Several fashion blogs are speculating." I considered the question carefully. Not yet. Let's focus on the fall collection first. The routine of work provided structure during my grief. Each sketch, each fabric selection, each fitting became a meditation of sorts. I found myself incorporating subtle elements that reminded me of Mom. A particular blue she loved, pattern work inspired by her garden, a silhouette that echoed her favorite dress from the 60s. 3 weeks after I returned to New York, my assistant informed me that my father was in the reception area. I found him looking small and out of place amid the sleek minimalism of the Elysium offices, clutching his worn briefcase like a shield. "Dad, is everything okay?" I asked, concerned by his unexpected appearance. "I took the train down," he explained, looking around with wide eyes. "I realized I've never seen where you work, never really seen your life." I gave him the full tour design studios, the small in-house production area where we made prototypes, the showroom where buyers viewed collections. With each stop, I watched his expression shift from confusion to dawning comprehension to unmistakable pride. "This is all you," he said finally, standing in my office and taking in the wall of magazine covers, featuring Elysium designs. "You built this." "I had help," I replied modestly. "No," he insisted, his voice stronger than I'd heard since Mom's diagnosis. "Your mother and we didn't. We should have supported you more, believed in you." "Dad, you don't need to." "I do need to say it," he interrupted. "We got it wrong, Michelle. Your mother knew it too, at the end. Those designs you found in the attic? She started collecting them after you moved to New York. Said someday she'd show them to you when you were ready to hear her say she was sorry." Tears formed unexpectedly. I blinked them away, unprepared for this conversation in my professional sanctuary. "She was proud of you," Dad continued, "even without knowing about all this. She just didn't know how to say it." That evening, we had dinner at my apartment, the first time he had visited my actual home rather than the modest place I'd kept for family visits. Over pasta, he asked thoughtful questions about my business, my design process, my vision for the future. "And what about Amanda?" he asked eventually. "Have you spoken since?" I shook my head. "She's not returning my calls." Dad sighed. "Give her time. This is a lot for her to process." "You've upended her whole understanding of your relationship." "I never meant to hurt her," I said honestly. "I just needed to find my own path without constant comparison or criticism." "I know," he replied, reaching for my hand across the table. "But remember, your success doesn't have to be her failure. There's room for both my daughters to find their way." His wisdom stayed with me in the following weeks as I developed a new project, a memorial collection that would honor Mom while creating a bridge to my sister. I began sketching pieces inspired by our shared childhood memories. A scarf with a pattern based on the wallpaper from our bedroom, a coat with buttons similar to those on Mom's favorite winter jacket, a dress silhouette that echoed her wedding gown. Most significantly, I incorporated elements from Mom's own artistic work. Watercolor studies I found in her desk that showed remarkable talent and vision. Her abandoned dreams would find new life in my creations. A month after our dinner, Dad called to tell me Amanda had asked for my number. That same evening, my phone lit up with her name. "I'm in New York for work," she said without preamble. "Dad thinks we should talk." We met at a quiet cafe near my office. Amanda arrived precisely on time, dressed in a non-Elysium outfit for the first time in years. "Nice place," she commented, looking around at the understated elegance of the cafe I'd chosen. "The owner was our first retail account," I explained. "She's expanded since then." An uncomfortable silence settled between us. Years of misunderstanding and competition creating an almost physical barrier. "I've been angry," Amanda finally admitted. "But I've also been thinking, about why you felt you had to hide this from me. From all of us. It wasn't about hiding, I tried to explain. It was about creating something that was truly mine, without anyone's expectations or judgments attached to it. Including mine, she said pointedly. I nodded. Especially yours, at times. She stirred her coffee methodically. I always thought you judged me for caring about labels and status, for wanting nice things. And I thought you judged me for not caring enough, I countered. We were both right, in a way. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. The irony isn't lost on me. All those times I lectured you about quality and craftsmanship, I was actually talking about your own work. You have excellent taste, I offered, and we both laughed, breaking some of the tension. Would you, she hesitated, would you show me where you work? Your actual studio? Not the story you made up all these years? That afternoon, I gave Amanda the same tour I'd given our father. Unlike him, she understood immediately the significance of what she was seeing, the technical achievements, the innovative construction methods, the subtle details that made Elysium unique. In the design room, she stopped in front of my mood board for the memorial collection, studying the watercolors and photographs pinned there. These are Mom's, she said softly, touching the edge of a painting. I recognize her style. I found them in her desk, I explained. Dad says she was an artist before they married. I'm building a collection around her work, to honor her creativity. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. She wanted to be a painter? Apparently, but her parents convinced her it wasn't practical. Like she did with you, Amanda observed. And then you succeeded anyway. We all inherit patterns we don't recognize, I said, echoing Dad's wisdom. The question is whether we perpetuate them or break them. As we stood side by side, looking at our mother's artwork, I felt something shift between us, not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but the beginning of understanding. We had both been shaped by the same family dynamics, just in opposite directions. Creating the memorial collection became a form of therapy in the months that followed. Each piece allowed me to process my grief while celebrating Mom's hidden talents. When the collection debuted 6 months later, both Dad and Amanda sat in the front row, the first time my family had ever attended an Elysium show. The success of the collection was immediate and overwhelming. Fashion critics praised the emotional depth and technical mastery, calling it my most personal work to date. What few knew was that each piece contained a tiny embroidered flower Mom's signature from her paintings, hidden where only the wearer would find it. I finally understood that true success wasn't measured in magazine covers or exclusive waiting lists. It came from authenticity, creating work that reflected my genuine vision while honoring those who shaped me, even through difficult relationships. The revelation at Mom's funeral had been painful but necessary. In exposing my secret, I had freed myself from the weight of pretense and opened the door to more honest connections with my family. The payback hadn't been about humiliating Amanda, but about claiming my truth after years of hiding. Have you ever had to reveal a long-kept secret to your family? What was the reaction? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about family revelations and finding your authentic path. Sometimes the most healing thing we can do is finally let people see who we truly are. Thank you for listening to my journey. May it inspire you to embrace your own gifts without apology.